Hello, and welcome to this edition of Wanderlust. I'm Peggy Rosenthal, owner of Dream Vacations here in Bella Vista. My co-host, Debbie Corwin with NWA Getaways in Springdale, is out of the studio today, so I hope to bring you lots of useful information for planning travel as the world opens up. In this edition of Wanderlust, we have several things we will cover. Of course, we will start with a COVID-19 update to help you understand what parts of the world and what destinations are opening. We'll also talk a little bit about travel safety certifications. Many travel agents are taking certification classes to really come up to speed with what's going on in the world and what requirements are out there. We'll talk a little bit about group travel. There's some great incentives that are associated with group travel that you'll want to know about. We'll also talk about cruise resumption. Yes, cruises are resuming. We'll talk about a new Explorian brand for those adventure-seeking travelers out there in the Caribbean and elsewhere. And then we'll finish up with some current promotions, which will interest all of you as you look for a great vacation value. So let's first start with COVID updates. Not a lot has changed since last month. Many destinations are welcoming travelers. Mexico has been open since June of last year. They do not require a COVID test for entry. You do need to take a COVID test and have a negative result in order to fly back into the United States. And most of the large resorts in Mexico are taking care of that testing cost for their guests. Much of the rest of the Caribbean is also open for business with varying degrees of requirements for entry into the destination, and then, of course, again, that negative COVID test to come back into the United States. Hawaii is open and a little bit more flexible than it has been in the past. Actually, if you want to do a Hawaii trip, I highly recommend you consult a travel advisor to help you because the testing requirements in Hawaii are very specific based on the island or islands you want to visit. So it's not as simple as getting a negative test result here and flying into Hawaii, but rather possibly taking intermediate tests in between islands. So it's very important to plan your itinerary for as little downtime associated with testing as possible. And cruising in Alaska does not look to open up for any ships that carry more than 200 passengers, but there are a couple of options that are open that carry less passengers than 200. And the really good news about Alaska is that there are a lot of land vacations open and a lot of rail vacations open in Alaska. So that's something that's fairly close to home. Yeah, you have to jump over the country of Canada, and that's a huge country, but still closer to home than some of the European vacations and others that might interest you. Let's talk about what destinations are still closed. Canada is still closed to U.S. residents, U.S. citizens, and even Canadian citizens that leave Canada and then want to come back into the country. If they do go back in, they need to quarantine in a state-associated accommodation at their own expense. So don't plan any trips to Canada right now. Cruising in the United States, or I should say out of the United States, is still suspended, but cruising is starting up in June and July in the Caribbean, and I will give you more information on that later in the show. These openings are constantly, or these rules are constantly changing, the openings and the closures. So just a reminder, please check out the website that we have up on the screen right now for the latest information regarding any destination you want to go to. You should be able to find really current information in this website that'll walk you through. And again, call on your travel advisor to help you navigate through all of the information that is ever changing. Second topic I'm going to talk about a little bit today is traveling safely. So there are several travel agents that have been taking certification courses on traveling safely, or actually the certification is travel safety. And it's a very broad certification program, definitely initiated due to COVID, but it covers things from testing, which you'll see a slide up there right now on testing, and let's talk about that first. There are two types of tests. There's the PCR test and there's the antigen test. The PCR test is one that is most recognizable universally, and several destinations require a negative PCR test to get into the country. It's a little bit more invasive, but it is required by several countries to get into the country or even the state if we refer back to Hawaii, which I talked about a couple of minutes ago. The second kind of test is an antigen test, and you might hear that referred to in the media as a rapid test. The antigen test is not quite as invasive as the PCR test. The results come back very quickly, hence the term the rapid test, and it is acceptable for coming back into the United States. So that new requirement that went into effect in late January that requires any traveler coming into the United States by air have a negative COVID-19 test, the antigen test is acceptable. So going back to my comment about most of the large resorts in the Caribbean offering that testing either complimentary to guests or for a very small price, that is the antigen test. That is the test they are administering, and many guests will have results in as little as a half hour or an hour, or certainly by the end of the day. So that is the most prominent test that's being administered really around the Caribbean for certain. If you want a PCR test, as you trust it more than you do the antigen test, there will be additional cost and there will be additional time for those results to come back. And the turnaround time on the PCR test is not as dependable as the antigen test. So that's just a summary of testing, and that's part of the travel safety program and certification that many of us agents have taken. Along with the testing, we have learned about protocols in hotels, protocols on aircraft, protocols in public places, and even expected protocols as the cruise lines resume service in the upcoming months. So we've been briefed on that. We have a good idea of what's happening, and we have constant information that is coming to us literally many times a day sometimes with the most recent changes and what's expected. And so we can advise our travelers what they can expect as they're trying to select a destination, and then once they've chosen a destination, what to expect when they get to destination. So travel safety, of course, is very, very important, and we as travel advisors do the best we can to alert the public of what's going on. But keep your eyes peeled, too, on various websites, and certainly the media continues to cover COVID and travel-related COVID issues on a frequent basis. Next in line for today's episode is group travel. So when I hear the word group, I naturally go to a place in my mind that is a convention center with 100 or 1,000 or 2,000 people. A group does not have to be that large. And there are several reasons to try and book a group if you're planning to travel with more than just yourselves or another couple. Group travel has some benefits, and some of those benefits can be qualified for on a cruise line, for instance, with booking as few as 8 double occupancy staterooms. So as few as 16 people, but it does have to accommodate, you have to take up 8 staterooms. So you can't do 16 people in 4 staterooms with 4 people in a stateroom. It's based on 16 berths across 8 staterooms. In the resort world, which as we all know, and we've certainly been telling you over the last few months, is much more open than cruising, you can qualify for a group rate in some cases for as little as 5 rooms. So that's a pretty small group. So again, going back to my initial mindset, where groups are 500, 1,000, 1,500 people in a big convention, some of these groups are as little as 10 people if you're going to a resort and you put 2 people in a room. So think about that when you're planning a family reunion, when you're planning a big birthday, a 50th anniversary. I mean, I took clients last fall into Mexico, Puerto Vallarta, and there were 26 in their family, and they took up 11 rooms, and that qualified as a group, and they got benefits that are associated with qualifying as a group. Graduation. Senior trips, lots of senior trips for high school age kids and for also college age kids. Those types of trips qualify very nicely for group benefits. So you might be asking, well, what are group benefits? They cross the board, but consider a wedding couple who wants to do a destination wedding in Jamaica. Jamaica is a big destination for weddings. The honeymoon couple or the wedding couple, if they have enough rooms booked by guests, could get their honeymoon absolutely free of charge. They could possibly get their airfare free of charge. They could possibly get their reception free of charge. So it's all dependent on how many rooms are booked at a resort. But that could really help the wedding couple save money, or the wedding couple's parents. Let's be honest, parents usually pay for the wedding. You can get things like wine or strawberries included in your room. You might get a reduced room rate, so maybe not free, but you might get 10 or 15% off. And if I'm taking a trip that's costing $5,000, you bet I would like to have 10 or 15% off of that total. There's also possibly, if you're cruising on a group, you might get onboard credits. And onboard credits for cruising are credits that are given to you, and you can use them in the bar, in the shop, in the spa, for shore excursions. You can use them for a lot of things. So that might be thrown in as an amenity for a member within a group. So there are incentives to group, and our intention here is to, again, inform you that groups do not have to be huge. So the next time you're talking to your family about, hey, instead of exchanging gifts for Christmas, let's plan a Christmas cruise or a trip to an all-inclusive resort for Christmas, plan it as a group. But you need to work through a travel advisor to do that, to make sure everything is done properly and that you qualify for those great benefits that come potentially with a group. We're going to take a quick break now, but when we come back, I'm going to come back with cruise news for you. Welcome back. Well, I know you have all been waiting for cruise news for months now, some of us for more than months, and I've got finally some cruise news for you. Hopefully it's news that you can use. There have been many announcements on cruises resuming service in the past 2 weeks, and literally every day we get new announcements. So I'm going to tell you about some of the announcements that have been made in the last 2 weeks, and then be ready for new announcements to keep on coming. So I mentioned earlier that cruising out of U.S. ports is still prohibited, it's still suspended, but what many of the cruise lines have done is decided to port their ships outside the U.S. for Caribbean sailings. And this is really a good thing for the summer travel particularly, because traditionally summer travel takes most of the cruise ships out of the United States, well, not out of the United States, but out of the continental United States and the Caribbean, posting many ships in Europe and Alaska. Well, this year, since the Canadian government will not allow cruise ships to port in Canada, that's pretty much washed out the Alaska cruise season, except for those smaller ships that I mentioned earlier. So what cruise lines have done that would traditionally place their ships up in Alaska, they were initially going to move them out of U.S. ports to do Caribbean itineraries. So that's great. It keeps cruising close to home. Families do not have to travel across the Atlantic or even up to Alaska to cruise, and it sounded like great news. Well, the reality of us not being able to cruise out of the U.S. ports kind of threw a wrench into that situation, but cruise lines are versatile, and they're flexible, and they're adaptable. So starting a few weeks ago, they announced that they would port out of foreign ports that are close to the U.S. So I'm going to take you through a few of these, but we're going to start with Crystal Cruises, and let's look at a video of Crystal Cruises and what they're offering out of the Bahamas this summer. Okay, I am ready to go. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Crystal Cruises is a luxury line, generally with a very high price point and very discriminating cruisers. Now when I say it's luxury though, that doesn't mean it's particularly formal. It's pretty much country club casual throughout, and it's all inclusive. Pretty much anything you want on the ship is included in your cruise fare. Now, Crystal was the first cruise line to announce they are leaving out of the Caribbean. They are porting in Nassau, Bahamas, and their 7-day itinerary is going to be all Bahamas. So you saw some of those beautiful pictures. How about that pink sand beach and swimming with the pigs? Who wouldn't love to swim with the pigs in Exuma? So I got so excited when they announced that I booked myself and my husband on the first cruise that is leaving on July 3rd out of Nassau. And the really nice thing about this cruise is even though it is luxury and it's usually at a very high price point, there are some really good values. The pricing is very attractive for a Crystal cruise, and for that reason they sold 40% of their capacity day one when they opened up for sale. There are still a few cabins left, so if you would like to dip your toes in the clear waters of Exuma and swim with the pigs and experience a luxury cruise line, then you should call your travel advisor to book a Crystal cruise. Next on the list we have Royal Caribbean. So Royal Caribbean is one of those that tends to sail out of Alaska and Europe in the summer, leaving maybe 1 or 2 ships cruising out of the U.S. But this year they've decided to put a ship in Bermuda and also put a ship in the Bahamas, so like Crystal. And they will be doing Caribbean itineraries, primarily 7 days, and they will go to their own private island, which is called Coco Cay. And what they say is have a terrific day at Coco Cay because that island has an incredible water park, all kinds of activities, zip lining, anything you could want to do, Royal Caribbean has at Coco Cay. So another great option, not at the price point of Crystal, but also some great deals and much more attuned to family travel. Great for multi-generational families or travel, and perfect for a group if you have, again, 16 or more people across 8 staterooms. Next, we'll talk about Celebrity. So Celebrity Cruises, Celebrity is part of the Royal Caribbean family, a little bit higher on the price scale and also experience scale, but certainly within almost anybody's budget. They have a brand new ship called Apex, which I'll talk about later, that's going out of Europe, but they've also based one of their ships in St. Martin. So the beauty of basing out of the Caribbean too is you as a traveler have the option to go in early or stay after the cruise to also experience that destination. So it's almost like 2 vacations in one. You've got a great destination to experience, and you also get to experience the cruise factor. And the St. Martin itinerary for Celebrity will include some of those really far south islands like Aruba. And if you've never been to Aruba, you need to experience Aruba. It's called the Friendly Island for a reason. The people on Aruba are extremely friendly. Most of them speak 7 or 8 languages. Almost all of them speak Dutch because Aruba is initially a Dutch island. And they are so far south in the Caribbean that you, on a clear day, can see South America. They are just off the coast of Venezuela. So that's a great itinerary out of St. Martin. And oh, by the way, Celebrity offers an all-inclusive package as well. So you can have it cover your gratuities, your beverage package, some specialty dining. So again, really good values to get people out and cruising again this summer. And then finally, Norwegian is basing a ship out of La Romana, which is not too far from Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic. I just returned from Punta Cana a couple of months ago, and it is beautiful, wonderful beaches, and that is one of the stops on their itinerary. La Romana is, again, not far from Punta Cana. Again, beautiful beaches, very quiet, very serene, and Norwegian will have a ship out of there all summer long. So most of these sailings start in either June or July. And again, contact your travel advisor, because if you want to get your toes wet, if you want to try your sea legs again, there are lots of good opportunities fairly close to home, fairly close to home. All right, let's talk a little bit about sailings that are happening outside the Caribbean. So if you're a little bit more adventuresome and you've just been dying to visit the Mediterranean, this is the year to do it. Several cruise lines are putting ships out in the Mediterranean. We've got to start out with Greece, okay, many basing out of Athens. We have MSC, which is a European company. It's an Italian cruise company. They do have a few ships here in the U.S., but most of their fleet is over in Europe, and they have been sailing for several months now with no real COVID problems. I mean, occasional case here and there, but they've been very, very good. Protocols are in place, and everybody's been safe. Celestial also is being based out of Greece, always is based out of Greece, I should say. Celestial is a Greece cruise line, a Greek cruise line. They only do the Greek islands. So if you've been dying to go to Santorini, Mykonos, Crete, all of that, Celestial, great opportunity, great itinerary, another all-inclusive cruise line. Norwegian, we talked about Norwegian before. Norwegian is basing a ship out of Athens as well. In fact, I just booked somebody on it a few days ago, and he's so excited. He's been trying to get over to Europe since May of last year, and we all know it has happened since then. So this is about his 5th cruise booking, but this one feels like it's going to hold because so many lines have shifted to Athens. I'm feeling pretty confident that Greece, it really is going to open up, and it's supposed to in the next few days, and I think it's going to be a great experience for a lot of people. And finally, we have Celebrity Apex. Okay, Apex is the brand new ship for Celebrity that was supposed to hit the water last fall. In fact, I was booked on Apex. I didn't get to go. Y'all know that. Apex is going to start in the Mediterranean. It's going to visit Israel as well as Greece, as well as Cyprus, and some great values on Apex. Wonderful values to experience the brand new ship from Celebrity that promises to be a great sailing venue. And then finally, we talked about Crystal a little bit before, and I'm going to bring up, Seabourn, another luxury line. Seabourn is also basing a ship out of Greece. So there you've got anywhere from your family-oriented Norwegian cruise lines to your local European and Greek cruise lines to your luxury lines. So something for everybody based on your style and based on your travel budget. So great opportunities out of Greece. Let's talk about the United Kingdom a little bit. The United Kingdom has some ships that are basing out of it. One is Disney Cruise Lines, because Disney obviously primarily travels out of Florida, and the CDC will not let them travel out of Florida. So they've said, that works. We're going to go over to the UK. They're marketing this as staycations because their cruises to nowhere. They're going to no ports, but they're leaving out of several ports in the UK. Right now, only for United Kingdom citizens and residents. But keep your eyes peeled because that very well may change. We're hearing noise that the UK has suggested that they might be opening it up to other citizens and other residences from countries that have achieved herd immunity. And the US should be one of those first because we are so far ahead with vaccinations. Also out of the US is Virgin. Virgin's brand new to the cruising market. They were supposed to start last year and couldn't, but they are starting this year out of the UK. Again, right now only for UK citizens and residences. And then Celebrity also is going to have a ship out of the UK. So there are some opportunities opening up. UK is not open right now to any of us that live in the US, but keep your eyes open because it's a possibility it will happen in the not too distant future. And then Iceland. So as you know, Iceland's kind of between, it is European, but it's kind of between the continent of Europe and North America. And in Iceland, we have Viking. So most of you are probably familiar with Viking river cruises, but Viking also has a few ships in the ocean space. They introduced ships in the ocean sailing about 5 or 6 years ago. Beautiful ships, less than 1,000 passengers, all-inclusive experience, and they are basing out of Iceland, as is Norwegian, as is Crystal. So again, something for everybody's budget, everybody's style, definitely some opportunities for cruisers who are ready to get back. So cruising is definitely an option, as I've said, for those of you that want to get your feet wet. But remember, it's going to come with some strict protocols. So we've got a slide for you to show you. Be ready for needing to have the vaccine, needing to have a negative COVID test, and probably having to wear a mask in the public areas on a ship, much like we're still practicing here in the United States. If cruising is not your favorite way to experience a destination, but you have an adventurous heart, I have great information on it's not a new brand, it's a brand that's new to me that I just discovered, and I want to tell you about it. It's called Explorian Resorts, and they are in Mexico. There are 2 of them. And I just want to show you what it's like because it's a very different experience. So let's first take a look at a video that'll give you a taste for what an Explorian adventure would look like. You can see that's a very different experience than your traditional all-inclusive resort on a beach in Mexico. But what a great opportunity to experience nature, get out and bike and hike and kayak, and really have just a great opportunity enjoying the surroundings. There are less than 60 rooms at each of the Explorian resorts, so they're very intimate. You'll get to know other guests. If you have one of those big groups that I talked about earlier, you could actually reserve the whole resort if you wanted to. And you're really going to immerse yourself in the region, in the destination, and even the restaurant presents menus that are from fresh ingredients that have been received locally and grown locally or produced locally. And the best thing, maybe not the best thing, but a good thing to understand on this one is with Explorian Resorts, the price you pay includes your activities. It includes tours. It includes excursions. It includes all of the things you saw. So we even have a slide to show you some of the things you can expect. But you could snorkel with the fish, which I understand you can do a lot of different places. But you can paddle in a kayak through Chapinab Park, which is in the Cozumel area. And a lot of people go into Chapinab, but they don't get to experience a kayaking trip down the river within the park and within the reserve. You can rappel down a 230-foot wall. I don't think I'm ready for that, but maybe next year. You can hike to a Mayan city. You can kayak and then end up in Xulhu cenote. And for any of those of you who have never experienced a cenote, next time you go to Mexico, take a trip to a cenote. It's a natural swimming pool, if you will, and they're just beautiful and a great experience for everyone. So let's talk a little bit about who would be attracted to an Explorian resort. So you saw the video. It looked like a younger crowd. I think more important than age, though, is the type of experience you want. If you really want to experience the outdoors, if you're an active person, if you want to hike, if you want to bike, if you want to kayak, if you want to be busy, 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 it's a great opportunity for you. The other side of it is maybe you're that adventurous person, but your traveling companion is not. Your traveling companion wants to sit on the beach and enjoy a pina colada and watch the world go by. This is a perfect solution for you because you can take all included excursions and your travel companion can do what they want to do on vacation. So it's a really good solution for almost anybody. And so there are two resorts. There's one in Cozumel, which of course is the largest island in Mexico. And then there's another resort in, and I'm not going to pronounce this properly probably, but Cohunlich, which is south in Mexico, south of Cancun, and you would actually make a connection through Mexico City to go to that resort. Now that resort is very, very nature focused. No televisions, very, very calm. You want to really enjoy it. You'll see here we've got a slide of the Explorian Cozumel, and then we've got a slide of the other resort. Both really, really nice, but the second one, Cohunich, you're really going to want to, that's for the person who really wants to get outside and really get off the grid and away from civilization. But when I talk about this, understand you're still getting great service, great cuisine, all-inclusive. It's just a different focus than your all-inclusive resorts right along the beach in Mexico, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, those places. So I bet you're asking yourself, how expensive is that place? Because that's the first question I had. Well, it's very reasonable. The price point is generally between $200 and $300 a night, double occupancy based on the room you select. And for those of you that have traveled to all-inclusive resorts, it's not unusual at all to spend $500 a night for an all-inclusive resort. So this is a great price point, very unique experience, something definitely worth thinking about. If not for you, you probably have that perfect friend that wants to do something like that, or a niece or a nephew or a son or a daughter, or maybe your grandma. Somebody is going to want to do this type of resort, and I certainly want to experience it. So it sounds like a unique offering with a great vacation. So today we've talked to you about COVID. We've talked to you about traveling safely. We've talked to you about cruising and group travel in a new resort brand. And I want to talk to you now about some great promotions that are coming up. So we have Crystal Cruises. I told you it's a luxury line. They're offering great prices right now. They're offering about 25% off their standard pricing right now. So definitely give Crystal a thought. Norwegian out of Bermuda. A 7-day cruise for as little as $430 per person. You cannot beat that. That is an incredible value. Again, it won't last long, and you get 2 days on that itinerary, 2 days at Coco Cay. So your kids, your grandkids, your husband, if he likes to zip line and do water parks, will be in heaven. Norwegian is offering a buy one, get one free on their air promo. So as an example, and this is a person I just booked, so I know it's a current example. The first person, husband, is paying $999 for his round trip from XNA to Athens, $999. That in itself is such a value, and his wife is going free. So again, great opportunity to hop over to Europe, and that's usually an objection I hear from people. I don't want to pay the outrageous plane ticket prices to Europe. $999 for 2 people. You can't beat it. And then finally, there's a 4-star resort, so not a bad resort, a nice resort, 4-star resort in Cozumel right now, 4 nights, all inclusive, including air, for as little as $625 per person. So there are some really good values out there. We don't want to forget that. So as you start thinking about, do I feel safe traveling? Do I want to travel? There are lots of opportunities out there. Just reach out to your travel advisor to help you with that planning. Finally, I have a follow-up to last month's question. Last month's travel question was about vaccinations, and will travelers be required to get a vaccination? And Debbie and I both said last month, well, a couple have announced it, but we don't know yet. Well, we pretty much know now. Almost every provider who has come out and announced cruise schedules, tour schedules, any of that, is requiring that their staff and all of the guests are going to have to be vaccinated. So I know some people do not want to be vaccinated, and we completely understand that, but just understand if you have the itch and you have some wanderlust in your blood right now, you need to consider to get the vaccination because it's likely going to be required when you travel. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our show today, and I hope you've learned something new about travel. And please reach out to either Debbie or myself for help if you need help planning your dream vacation. Bye now.